Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Last Thursday. As always, I'm your host, Michelle, and my co-host,
Mario.
Here we are for another one. It's been a couple weeks.
It has been.
Actually, maybe been a few weeks, I think.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
I know. I think it's okay, too.
Yeah, and tonight it feels very appropriate to be here, so pretty excited for this one.
Definitely. Let us know if the levels are good, because I know that's been an issue in the past. They are literally at the exact same place on the dial, but, you know, people have mentioned things before, so if someone can give us the confirmation that we're all good and clear in that regard, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, we'd appreciate that one, because we want to sound good for you guys. We want to come through clear, and yeah. So hopefully you guys are all doing good out there. Up on the screen, as always, got to kick off the episode with a big thank you to all of our patrons over at the Healing Home. You guys are freaking awesome. Thank you so much. Chance, Sarah, Liam, Amy, Miri and Hank, Jenny G, Erica, Moonlander, Spoons, Mary, Louie, Diane, Logan, Debbie, Natasha, Mary Beth, Nausicaa, Stephanie, Jennifer, Charlei, Peter, Elise and James, and Amy. Thank y'all. We appreciate it.
Much love.
Yes. The support means so much.
And if you guys want to sign up for the Patreon, it's patreon.com/thehealinghome.
Yes. And I have some more Patreon exclusives coming down the pipeline. I had an idea just, I think it was last week or something, for a Patreon exclusive, and I think people are going to really like it. I like the idea of it. So I'll be launching that within the next couple weeks, or maybe in the beginning of November or something like that.
Yeah, right on.
So that's exciting.
Nice.
Yes.
So this is your second show you're doing today, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is, actually.
You were busy for a few hours earlier today.
I was, and I was actually interviewed by Crow 777 and Jason today, and that's pretty exciting. That's a milestone for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, so we did an interview today, and it went really well. We had a really good chat. And I'm really looking forward to that episode dropping. I think it's going to be coming out next Sunday, actually. I think on the 15th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
Awesome. I know. I'm stoked for you. And you said it went well, and you've been preparing, and, you know, we went over.
Sorry. Our internet.
The cool thing is
Crazy.
is that at least the stream doesn't go down.
Yeah, that's true.
We can go down, but the stream is still up. So
yeah, and then you guys can hang in the chat and just know, as always, our internet totally gives us a bunch of troubles. So
totally. Okay, so inner sun vision, you said the volume is good, but mics are distorting a bit, like the gain might be too high. I just turned that down a hair, so let me know if that sounds better.
Yeah, thanks for the heads up on that one. And thanks everyone for the congrats. Yeah, I mean, huge milestone. It's it just feels so good to be able to share my knowledge with people, and this is going to be such a wider audience, and it's going to be really cool to see what comes of it. Super excited. Had a really good chat with them, and actually there was really great camaraderie. So that was really awesome. And so energy is high. It feels good.
I'm so excited for you.
Oh, thanks, Bob.
Yeah, and for us. And it's a kind of one of these things. I know we've briefly mentioned it before, but ever since we got engaged, there has been so much momentum and movement in the right direction that I just feel like this is not just part of that, because you've been working and I've been working hard to do things and, you know, put our names out there in the ways we know how. But it feels as though like it's part of that as well. Wouldn't you say?
I think so too. And we haven't even officially announced that. So.
Oh yeah, we're engaged.
We're engaged. Woo!
In case you didn't know, yeah.
Yeah. So that's really exciting, and it really has. I feel like it was like a puzzle piece. It to me, it feels like when things like that happen, and then all of a sudden there's all this momentum, you have to almost look at it like a nod from the universe, being like, good job. That was the right move kind of feeling.
Oh, yeah. No,
you know,
totally.
obviously I know we talk about this stuff all the time in that realm, but it really has. It was like, that was the go button.
Yeah, I feel as though too that was the case. And I keep on thinking about the alchemical marriage.
Yeah.
And just the significance of the alchemical marriage. And, you know, you see aspects of it, huge aspects of it in the Lover's card. There's other cards that you see it in, but, you know, it's been this sort of motif, I think, in esoterica and things like that, this marriage sort of concept or whatever. And it's just been on my mind ever since we did get engaged, and then kind of the fruits of that engagement just from announcing it or telling family and friends and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. It's been really cool. So there's a lot to say about that.
Yeah, there really is.
And maybe we can get into it later.
Yeah, maybe we can. But yeah, I mean, Mario surprised the hell out of me, that's for sure. Because we've been together for 12 years now. And so we've kind of just been content with how our relationship is, obviously. But, you know, deep down, I've always wanted to have that ceremony or have something honoring us. And so for Mario to do that and you to just surprise me, and it totally came out of the blue. It was like, oh my goodness, yeah, this is like what I mean, it sounds cliche maybe, but it feels like this is what every like girl dreams of or something.
Oh yeah, totally.
You know, like that in that deep down, and I think men too. You know, we want to partner. I feel like we want to couple. That's like what we're almost built for, because we're built for procreation. But I just, you know, it's just that one of those things, even as a young girl, you fantasize about those things.
Oh, of course.
So
I totally get it.
Feels just like, oh my God, wow, it's so exciting.
We've talked about the importance of ceremony and tradition and things like that, but specifically the importance of, you know, the wedding tradition.
Yeah.
And we just went through Virgo season. I proposed during Virgo season.
Correct.
So it's like the end of her virginity is when she gets married, right? And virginity meaning back in the day that it meant unwed, unpartnered, not married, you know? So that was a cool synchronicity too, because I hadn't really, I mean, I was thinking about that symbolism, but it was kind of a spontaneous thing for me to do it. And then I'm like, holy shit, I'm like, this matches up like perfectly. And then what it got me thinking of too is like, there's traditions where different, you know, cultures have had different ideas on when people should get married, when they should have children. And nowadays, obviously, it's like people do what they want to do whenever. Clearly, a lot of people want to get married, like, you know, in the spring or summer or something like that. But it makes me wonder if there's any sort of group or culture out there that traditionally gets married in Virgo season. Like if that's part of the thing that's baked into it or not. It is a beautiful time of year still. Yeah. You know, and then just symbolically, everything matches. Like bridal symbolism, the veil, you know, all of this stuff. It just fits perfectly with Virgo. And so that was cool to realize after the fact. And then we kind of decided that why not just wait a year then and get married in Virgo season next year?
Right, which feels totally right.
I think it feels right too.
And I feel like it's a, you know, good amount of time for us to figure everything out. And, you know, we're so untraditional too that we're going to, who knows, our families are like waiting in the wings to hear everything. But, you know, we'll plan and see how it comes through, and it's going to be great. So, yeah.
Totally.
Happy to finally announce it. We haven't really said anything, so it's pretty cool to
announce
it to all y'all. And thank you so much for being here, witnessing the announcement.
Yeah, definitely.
And another thing I thought of when I was thinking about stuff that we could talk about tonight was, so we talked about, you know, concluding our Summer of Love series.
Kind of wrapping it up.
And I'm like, damn, we kind of had a little Summer of Love in that respect with the engagement. And I thought, it just came to my mind and I was like, oh, that's interesting. But I wasn't sure if we were going to announce it or not. So here we are. And so I kind of feel like...
That's true. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, it's kind of like leading up to that or what have you.
Right.
So...
Definitely.
Yeah.
Nice. That's a good one.
Yeah.
That hadn't occurred to me. And I don't think you've even brought that up to me yet.
No, because it just occurred to me today as I was thinking about, you know, just things to have in the back pocket for tonight.
And you tell me everything too, so...
Even maybe too much.
No, it's never too much, baby.
No, I know. But anyway, that's funny.
Yeah. So I recognize some people in the chat. Thanks for hanging out so far.
Yeah.
You want to address the chat first, or you want to get to tea?
Yeah,
real
we've
quick?
got maybe give it some more time to steep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ron, let's do that. Oh, this light. Okay, there we go. Well, it's a little bit better at least. Okay, Flat Earth Hippie was here. Perhaps he's still hanging around.
Hey, Hank.
Hank, if you're around still, what's up, dude?
Probably gonna see you in like a couple weeks here. If you're heading to Flattoberfest with Miri, which I assume you are.
Totally. Kabir, what's up?
Hey, Kabir.
Howdy ho. Erica is here.
Hey, Erica. Long time no see. Good to see you.
Mentioned earlier, Inner Sun and Vision. Hello.
Howdy.
And then Matt Moon Crazy is here. Better stock your store up. I'm sure that was in regards to Crow.
Yep. Working on it.
Oh, sweet. So Inner Sun and Vision is from Western Oregon. Curious where in Oregon.
Yeah, that's cool.
What's up, Kyle? Tippecanoe is here.
Hey, Kyle.
Hope you're doing well, man. Of course.
Hi to Serena and Davide as well.
Yeah, and then you're going to be talking to Serena here really soon.
Coming up on Tuesday on the 10th.
That's
10,
awesome.
10.
Cool. I can already tell that's going to be a good one. Right on, Amanda H. She can hear us loud and clear.
Sweet.
Very cool. Sarah G.
Hey, Sarah.
Howdy ho.
See you soon, too.
Yeah, totally. We should talk about Flattoberfest for a little bit.
Yeah, we should.
So, Marcavelli 23, what's good?
Hey.
Indeed. Yeah.
Yeah, super knowledgeable guy. I mean, he threw all sorts of stuff at me, and it was really fun. We really did some pinball for sure. It was fun.
Back and forth.
It was great.
Right on. Awesome. Oh, what's up, dude?
Hey.
Moonlander's here. Hey, did you go to the Tarot Symposium? Because we totally missed it, man. Usually we go every single year. And Michelle brought it up last night. She was like, hey, is the symposium coming up? And I'm like, holy shit, I think it is. And then sure enough, looked into it, and it was last week.
Womp womp.
So anyways, I hope you went, because you're all about it. But anyways, Dave, we've met Dave at least at one symposium before. I'm pretty sure we've either ran into Dave or met up with him.
Yeah.
Or tried to.
Or something. Yeah, for sure.
Maybe it didn't work out, but he's a tarot buddy, a local tarot buddy. Right on. Kyle wants to know, did I get down on a knee? I did not get down on one knee.
We were both sitting down, though.
we were both sitting down barefoot outside on a hike.
On a ledge.
Yeah. On
a ledge somewhere.
Yeah. It was very, very casual.
Yeah.
What's up, Ben? How you doing, man?
Hey, Ben.
Ben is presenting at Flattoberfest, so that's going to be cool. Hope all is well with that. Obviously, Autumn Greer. Hello.
Hey.
Yes, Sarah, that was the announcement.
Yes.
So, did you have a date, right, for the
I think they said it's going to be Sunday the 15th.
Right.
That's
whatever that Sunday is.
Whatever that Sunday is.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's the day it's going to be.
Right. Totally. Polymathing.
Hey, Lou.
What's good?
Good to see ya.
Old World Micmac. What's good, man?
Hey, what's happening? Welcome.
And yeah, we are.
Thank you, Erica.
Right. Okay. Indeed. Yeah, I'm helping Ben with his stuff for Flattoberfest.
Woo!
So it's gonna be good, man. We got to meet up about that soon. See where your head's at with everything. And Katrina.
Yeah, it's Katrina.
How's
How's it going? Good to see you.
I know it has been a little while since we've been here.
Yep. We've been really busy, and we were going to actually go live last week, and then we both were like, I just don't know if we're feeling it. And we just kind of decided not to. But we're here this week, so that's what matters. And that's the beauty of Last Thursday, as we've always begun, is like, it's so casual, but we want to also be consistent. But, we also want to be flexible with ourselves with this one.
Yeah, it's really interesting. This has been kind of a thing for us ever since we started, I guess, just putting stuff out online.
Right.
It's just like, I've heard from people who have very successful shows, and they're like, consistency is such a huge key. You got to be there week after week. You have, having a set day and time and release schedule, and like come hell or high water, you're like putting stuff out. Unless something happens, crazy or whatever.
Right.
But that's one of the big secrets. And for me, not even a secret, it's just one of the keys to success. right? And so I know of a show right now that's barely taking off, and they've been doing it for like 10 years.
Wow.
Something crazy like that, like
Right.
almost a decade. And now it's finally got the traction that they really want, you know?
Right.
And so this is in contrast, or this kind of conflicts with the artist's brain and the artist's sort of way, where the artist's way generally is way more right brained and is way more like, I do things when I'm inspired. You know, I want to do it when I am feeling it and all this other type of stuff. So I know a lot of creative types have like huge issues with maintaining schedules, with being regular that way, having routines, you know, all that kind of stuff. And so that's one of my struggles with content creation. And I feel like if anything has maybe potentially held me back, it's been a lack of schedule. But I've heard, you know, some other people say like, man, I wish I could do that and just do things when I feel like it's worthwhile or whatever.
Right.
Long story short, last Thursday, I think one of our philosophies with it is that it's more like the artist sort of mentality.
Yeah.
Versus the healing home and whatever.
Right, definitely. Because I think there is definitely the time and place for that consistency depending on your goal. And our goal with the last Thursday was to kind of do exactly what we're doing here, which is be able to chill with you guys, be more casual, bring up random things, bring on callers, you know, if we're really inspired by something, like just do a show on it or whatever.
Yeah.
Kind of like fly by the seat of your pants sort of feeling. So, yeah, it's fun.
Because also, too, just saying, I mean, there's so many shows where, and I'm not like dogging on people or anything like that, like do your thing. But there's a lot of shows where people go live, but they don't have anything really to say, you know, or it's just kind of like, okay, you're just filling the air now. Talk radio is the worst at this, in my opinion. Like the mainstream, like what you can get over the air.
Oh God.
You know, where it's just
well,
like,
because they have to go. I mean, they have to go.
Yeah.
Because they have like contracts and shit.
Exactly. So
know?
there's some people that I'm thinking of where it's like they're like late night sort of conspiracy-ish, truther-ish type shows, and they have to go live several times a week for like 5 hours or something crazy, 4, 5, 6 hours. And it's just like, get to the point. And they never get to the point because they have to fill the air.
Yeah.
You know? And so to me, that's not worth it either. You know, it's like, cool, you're fulfilling your contract or whatever, but it's like, how good is this for your audience? And, you know, just being a master at just filling the air, you know, to me is just not very appealing. So,
yeah, it's like to each their own. And that's the beauty of the internet, too, is because you can pick and choose and you can hang out in the stream that does that, or you cannot, or you can create your own or whatever. And so...
Right.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. It's very interesting to see the creation that's happening with and what people like and what people don't like and all the things. So
right.
Yeah.
Definitely. So anyways, so last Thursday, obviously it's been all over the place, but here we are regardless.
We're here, and I just want to say hello to Miss Debbie. I saw her pop in. Thank you. Going to be seeing her soon too for Flattoberfest. And Liam is also here. Howdy, Liam.
What's up, Liam?
Good to see ya. And yeah, I think now we've said hello to everybody. And I bet our tea is ready.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think so. It's had a good 10 minutes. So, yes, I will pour that for us.
Cool.
You know, I harvested. We have a lot of grapes on our property, and we've got Concord grapes, and we also have white grape. Well, they're like green grapes, but they also turn purple. So I don't know exactly what type they are. But they're delicious nonetheless. And I made Concord grape juice, and I just feel like it was a little too much, actually. Like I got to figure out, because I just use a juicer, right? And it's there's seeds in the grapes. And Concord grapes make a really thick juice. So I've got to figure out if I should cook it down, if I should strain it again. I think I might get like a jelly bag, you know, like the fine mesh jelly bag, strain it. So if anyone out there has ever juiced Concord grapes and done something with the juice, throw it up in the chat, because I'm interested to see. And I know there's different methods. You know, you can actually like mash the grapes and then cook it down, and then you strain off the the skins and all that stuff. So anyway, but that was going to be our drink. That we both had some. It was like you could feel the digestive like effects right away.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so it was like, yeah, I think just a little of this is enough. We don't need to have another glass.
Right.
So we're having tea. So my classic standby tea is always spearmint and licorice root. One of my favorite combos. So I threw that into the pot, but then I also threw in this tea by our friend Lori, Two Spirit Medicinals. It's called Lightness of Being. Now, Mario actually designed these labels for her. It's kind of blurry.
Yeah.
But I know, and we know Lori from Portland. She used to run an herb shop called, Clary Sage Herbarium. She owned that for many years, and that was a standby herb shop for me. I got to know her over the years, and she sold the herb shop maybe about 4 years ago, and she started Two Spirit Medicinals. And she makes some of the best essences and emotional supportive medicines that I've ever had.
Yeah.
Everything she makes is very potent and strong. She grows pretty much everything that she uses or she harvests it. She has great intention. She's a really knowledgeable and talented medicine woman. So I wanted to shout her out with this blend. So this blend is all about promoting self-love and acceptance. And I find when you consume this as tea or as her tincture, there is something about like it really boosts the self-confidence. It like allows you to just acknowledge your inner strength. And I've noticed that with all of her remedies, but this one in particular, she's got a handful of them. But anyway, so we're drinking that plus spearmint and peppermint.
Nice. Yeah, Lori's cool. We've been working with her. I've been working with her for years.
Yeah.
You've known her for years.
Yeah.
And so she's been very supportive too throughout the years.
Yeah, she has. So
all right, cheers.
Pretty exciting. Cheers. Oh, that's good.
Oh yeah. I like it.
You can't go wrong with licorice root either. I love licorice root. It's one of those ones you don't want to drink it like every day, especially if you have like heart stuff going on.
Right, right.
Because they say it can like raise your blood pressure and things like that. And I've never had an issue with it. But anyway, just a little word for the wise, I suppose. But do your research. Anyway, so yes. Well, casual night. We're going to take call-ins. So
we are.
If anyone out there would like to call in and join us in a conversation, if you have something that's been on your mind, if you have something you want to talk to us about, if you just feel like hanging for a little while, Mario's dropping the link in the chat right now. So feel free and come on in if you feel like hanging out. We'd love to talk with you guys and see what's good.
Yeah, totally. So we should do the, I know we both have random stuff we could talk about that we will talk about.
Yeah.
But the Summer of Love wrap-up stuff.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that you are continuing, even though we've done several episodes on this. I don't know, how many did we do? 6 or 7, maybe?
I don't know exactly, but that sounds about right. Something like that.
Yeah. But it's inspired you to continue diving into this material.
Yeah.
So it's not something that, you're going to give up on anytime soon.
Yeah, no, this is a lifetime interest, study, intrigue of mine.
Right.
The 1960s, but specifically, Manson and the process and all that stuff. It's within me. It has
yeah,
been a big part.
Oh no, I totally get it.
Yeah.
And I see Rubestar. Click the link. What's up, dude? I see behind the scenes. So we're gonna talk about this for a couple minutes.
Yeah.
And then we'll bring you into the chat. Right on.
Awesome.
Got the thumbs up from Rubestar. Right on, dude.
Nice. Sweet.
Get comfortable, man. Get yourself a drink. Whatever you got to do. But okay. So how do you think the series went? And then I guess, do you have any new wrinkles or revelations with things that you wanted to share with people? Because generally what happens, one of the best parts, in my opinion, a very selfish thing, in the best of ways, in my opinion, one of the best things about putting stuff out is that you are going to get feedback from people. And then people are going to send you links and people are going to tell you if you're wrong.
Yeah.
And things like that. And so because we did the Summer of Love thing, we got invited on a show to talk about the Process Church together.
Yep.
And then
shout out Occult Rejects.
Yeah. And New York Patriot. And through that, you found out about another researcher who you're seemingly fairly excited about because they're going deep with things.
Yep.
And so anyway, so, you know, as we put out content about that, we've received new information and we've gotten new sort of people to look into and things like that. So is there anything that you feel like is worthwhile with sharing that adds to, you know, the Summer of Love series?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that it went really well, actually. I think a lot of people have interest in that decade in general. I think, and I think part of it is because they've come to realize how our system works and how things are contrived and how things are promoted and things like that. But I also think that the 60s in general is intriguing to a lot of people just because of what it was. And I think that there's a deep... I think a lot of people have nostalgia for that decade, even though they don't realize it or they don't know why, whether that's programmed into us or we have a connection to the music or the clothing or something, you know, that maybe if you're of age lived through, or maybe you saw your parents do or what have you. So I think we did a good job of sharing the stuff we know. You know, I think that what I'm realizing is that I was able to find a lot more researchers by doing this, which is cool. Like I found a whole other pocket of the internet that is really into Manson. I'm not shocked. I've known that there's a lot of people out there that research Manson, but there's a few podcasts I came across that are diving into it from the standpoint that we took of like, something just doesn't smell right with this one. Like there's way more there's way more stuff here than meets the eye kind of thing. And so the woman that I came across through New York Patriot after we did our episode on the process, I'm actually interviewing her. She's going to come on the Healing Home on Halloween because I thought, what better subject than to talk about the Process Church on Halloween.
Yeah.
And she has done some amazing research on the Process Church and has really cracked some major codes that I've never seen cracked before. And she is putting together pieces that are like, holy shit, this is dangerous information.
I was just going to say pretty...
it's very much...
ballsy or courageous, whatever you want to say.
It's riding a line where it's like, this is the kind of shit that they do not want you to talk about. Because she went through, court documents, you name it. And she's putting all this stuff together with the Best Friends Animal Sanctuary, finding out how much more sinister this actually really is, how actually involved the Church of Scientology really, really is with the process. And that the Church of Scientology basically opened up Best Friends Animal Sanctuary and they funded a big chunk of it, and that is not like that that's like a hush hush thing. She's actually even had like current Scientologists and former Scientologists come after her. She was banned on Twitter because, and when we know people who are into this information, you know that once you start getting banned on this kind of shit, you know you're hitting a nerve. You know you've hit something that they don't really want you to discuss. So in terms of it uncovering a lot of new things, I feel like that was a big success with it. And so that's pretty exciting for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it actually, because, for people who've been following the Healing Home, I interviewed Neil Sanders, who wrote Now Is the Only Thing That's Real, which is one of my favorite Manson books. And one of the things he talks about is how he believes that the Ed Sanders view, who wrote The Family, which was back in like the 70s, he talks about how the process was very much involved with Manson. And Ed Sanders actually got sued by the process because the process was very heavily involved. It's seeming that's what this woman, Dana, is uncovering is like, oh, no, they sued him for a reason.
I would love to know. I mean, I would have to do a lot of digging. I'm personally not the person to do it. But it's like when we talked about the Hells Angels as an example, and when we watched Hells Angels documentaries and stuff like that, they went after a number of people and groups and whatever through the court system.
Yeah.
And I'm like, who are the lawyers that are like suing people on behalf of the Hells Angels and the Process Church and things like that?
They're mafia lawyers.
Right? I mean, they would have to be.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense.
That's
to me.
exactly what it comes down to. It's
Right?
mafia, and that's the other thing that she's kind of uncovering too,
Ah.
and that the only way that some of these people are so connected is through these kind of like more backdoor
Right.
networks. And the Scientology as well is kind of like its own mafia, kind of like Mormonism. They
Right.
kind of ride that line of having so much power and so much control and so much clout that they can do things. They're above the law in certain ways. And the process is really tricky in that way. And I think that they've gotten away with a lot of stuff. And it's pretty crazy, but I'm not gonna divulge any much more because I want Dana to be able to explain some of this stuff when I have her on, because she's just been putting stuff together. But her channel on YouTube is called Rotting Jewels, like rotting jewels. Her name is Dana. She goes live pretty frequently, and she's really on this process tip right now. Like, she's going in.
Right.
So if you're wanting to check her out before that. Before our interview, I highly recommend checking out her stuff. And she's like kind of revisiting Manson and learning more about Manson and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice. Very cool.
So I think the Summer of Love was a success. I don't know. What do you guys think? Did you guys enjoy it out there? I mean, I think that a lot of people really did enjoy chiming in and hearing about it.
I'm sure for some people it was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think that it was a worthwhile deep dive for sure. I feel like there's still some stuff on the table that we can get around to at some point, perhaps. It allowed us to kind of break outside of our comfort zone a little bit. We had Pedro here for the Woodstock documentary.
Yep.
And so that was cool to have him around. I wish we would have set things up a little differently.
Yeah, we learned some lessons with that one.
Yeah, it should have been more conversational.
Yeah, we realized like just the way we set up the chairs. Like I think someone had mentioned it. It looked like we were in like a car.
Yeah, that's
like
exactly.
We were driving a car, and we wished we would have like set it up like a half circle or something at least.
A third person makes a big difference.
Yeah, we wish we would have had a third mic. So because in the future, like we want to try and perhaps do that again, have a guest. So now we know moving forward what we would do, and so that's just how you learn. So.
Totally.
But it was fun to have him here because I know that he's into it and into just diving into stuff and had some great opinions. And
yeah, I'm sure he'll be back for something at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought it was fun. I thought it was cool. I liked the fact that we just stuck with the theme for a little while, and it's near and dear to you, and I'm happy to talk about it again at some point. I'm sure we will too. That's not going to be the last thing we cover like this, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I'm sure we'll have some deep dives.
So if you don't mind, maybe there's a couple of small things I want to address in the chat.
Okay, yeah.
And then we can bring on Rubestar, see what he has to say about things, or see if he has any questions.
Okay.
And then we can get back to it if there's anything else regarding the Summer Love.
Yeah, let's do it.
What do you think?
I think it's good.
Yeah, so, okay, one thing I want to ask, if Old World Micmac is here, I want to know if you have ever been on a show before, because you're always hanging out, on Old World Florida's channel and things like that, and you have a wealth of information, and so just curious if you're public like that. I don't know. There's just, whenever I see your comments and stuff, they're always very intriguing, and so I know you have a lot of stuff to share with people. So that was one thing I wanted to ask real quick. And then we got some new people hanging out. So thanks for joining us and chilling and spending your Thursday evening with us. But with that said, I'm going to bring Rubestar on and see what's good with this guy. Hey, Rubestar.
Hey, what's up?
Not much, man. How are you?
Super fantastic.
Awesome.
Right on. Have we seen your name in the chat before? Do you recognize Rubestar's name by chance?
I don't know. Maybe. No, I can't off the top of my head. Not really.
Yeah, I don't recall either. But anyways,
nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too, dude. So have you been following the channel for a little while, or you just stumbled across these parts here?
Yeah, I was in the chat not too long ago. I was hitting you up with saying that the Virgo and Libra should be switched, in my opinion. in that if the symbol for, let's say, okay, Libra is currently an air sign, and I'm not saying it wouldn't be an air sign, but instead of the scales, you had a woman, the Virgin, as the symbol. Then your three air signs would be Gemini, the twins, which are of mankind, and then the female is another man, and then the third one would be the water bearer. So the three symbols for air would be, you know, for lack of a better word, humans, which I don't like to use that word, but anything else would escape me. But I was bringing that up, but that's not why I jumped in today's call. I wanted to ask you, unless you had some commentary on it.
Oh no, go for it, dude.
The double-headed eagle. So yeah, I see your stuff on YouTube. Your post. I'm really impressed with your wealth of knowledge. But the double-headed eagle, you see it a lot of times on flags and symbols and royalty. What's your thoughts on the double-headed eagle? What does it mean to you?
Good question. So to me, whenever I see double of anything, right? Twins, pillars, posts, mountains, trees, things like that. I actually I tend to break things down to the kind of nuts and bolts of what they represent. And so, as an example, I'm thinking of this illustrator. His name's Geoffrey Boschart, and a painter rather. And he did this amazing series of the astrological signs. And his paintings are super, super, super encoded. There's lots of details, and he's a mythologist, symbologist, occultist, esoteric sort of guy. And he actually puts the, if I'm not mistaken, he has the double-headed eagle on his print for Gemini. Which is symbolic of like the alchemical marriage in a lot of ways. And so it's like the polar opposites coming together and unifying, so the union of opposites. And so when I see the double-headed eagle, I tend to think of similar sorts of symbolism. So I tend to think of this twinning sort of concept. I think of the middle way. So I think of the 2 in 1. And I think that the middle pillar or the middle path, in like the Kabbalistic tree of life, it's the unification of opposites, right? Because it's in between the two other pillars. So whenever I see two-headed symbolism, to me, I think of kind of mercurial sort of stuff as well. So Mercury, he's like the divine androgyne, and a lot of mercurial figures are like halved that way, that they're feminine and the masculine. They're both basically. So they embody the light, they embody the dark, positive and the negative fused into one. And so I do think of very mercurial sort of symbolism. And so so that's what I think of. I think of the union of opposites, essentially. And I think of this middle path, or I think of this middle way. And if I'm not mistaken, I think one of the things that I've heard from L.C. King is that I believe there's a myth where Zeus sends out a couple of eagles, from the center of Earth to see how far they fly and for them to come back and tell him how big the Earth is, or something along these lines. And that it's from this central point from the north. And I very much interpret like, the north being related to the world axis and that central pillar, the ionic pillar in the middle of the Kabbalistic tree. And so so that's what I tend to think of personally. But obviously the eagle itself, it relates to Scorpio as an example, right? So Scorpio has like 3 emanations or 3 expressions: the scorpion, the snake, the eagle being related to fire, and also related to the phoenix as well. That's another expression of Scorpio that people have said, is that it's either like an eagle / phoenix. And even when you look at Scorpio in the night sky, it looks very much like a bird. So this is kind of something that people have said over time. So those are some of the things I think about. Obviously Freemasonry and things like that too. And when you get into Freemasonry, you're always going to see those twin pillars, right? Same thing with like in front of Solomon's temple or what have you. So the 2 in 1 essentially is pretty much how I look at it. But how do you see it? What research have you done with it?
No research, just I just say intuition or whatever. I don't know. I tend to think that it is. Well, I kind of have a couple views on it. One being that the Catholic Church was split into two. It was the East and the West. It was Rome and Constantinople. So that's one thought I have, is that those were the two ruling aspects. And then the other one is that there's a belief or knowledge that the post office controls the whole world. And it's through the UPN, the Universal Postal Union. And it all boils down to either the Vatican or England are the two main post offices. So I tend to think it has something to do with that.
Gotcha. Interesting. I'm kind of inclined to think that, I mean, for sure, I could see some of these things line up, but I think that there might be a deeper seated sort of meaning behind it that kind of like, spans like a pretty large period of time, perhaps. There's so many empires that have used the eagle, and just even, indigenous peoples and stuff like that having eagle symbolism that they've used and things of that sort.
Right. And I think, go ahead.
Well, you bring up Scorpio, and the first thing I think of when I hear Scorpio is control. And so the eagle is kind of a good symbol for control. It has its claws on, I think, a globe, and its other claws on something else. So it's kind of controlling everything. Totally, man. And eagles are amazing creatures, and very, very powerful. We have a lot of eagles where we're at, actually.
We really do. Yeah. Lots of bald eagles. They're around all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
Well, and if Ben is still around, and I could be, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that Odin also has a correspondence to eagles. I know that he's associated with ravens, but if I remember correctly, he may also have some kind of correspondence with an eagle.
I could see that.
I'm not 100% on that, but like I said, if Ben's still out there, he can probably confirm on that one.
Right.
But
totally.
That's what comes to my mind.
Gotcha. Yeah. Even, I'm thinking of some of the tarot cards that have eagle symbolism attached. You're going to see eagles like on the Emperor card, which is interesting and makes a lot of sense, very fitting.
Yeah.
And I know there's at least one or two other cards that have eagle symbolism. If I were to look at a deck, I could probably pull something out. But those are the thoughts off the top of my head, though. What has you interested in double eagle symbolism right now?
Well, not really that interested, other than just the search for knowledge. And you see it, and it's kind of like I think ubiquitous is the word. Like, it's not that it's everywhere, but it is common. And it always just seems like they know something that we don't know. And it's such a strange thing to pick. Like, you don't see one naturally in nature. I've never seen a double-headed eagle. So why do they pick that? And the other thing is, I like what you said about the middle pillar, but it's also maybe it could be like the two hemispheres of the brain. I don't know. Just curious.
Exactly. So, like middle pillar symbolism or the twinning thing or whatever. Absolutely. Two halves of our brain, two halves of our body, man and woman. There's a ton of different expressions. But this book right here, actually, if I'm not mistaken, he maybe mentions it briefly, but it's this book called Polaria, The Gift of the White Stone. And it's by this fellow named W.H. Mueller. And it's actually one of the things I wanted to talk about tonight. I read this book, and he's really knowledgeable with symbolism and esoteric information, but kind of like an older sort of interpretation of things, going back to a previous tradition, like what he refers to as like a polar tradition or a stellar tradition. So I don't know if you've been following, but one of the things I'm really intrigued with right now is basically kind of thinking about symbolism from a three-tiered sort of framework, where there are certainly groups that have like a solar worship or a solar tradition basically intact with like their sort of lore and everything else. And there's other groups that have a mixture of all of these things, but a heavy lunar sort of influence.
Yeah.
And then other groups that have like a heavy polar or stellar influence. and that I think that we currently live in like a solar age. And then previous to that, there was a predominant lunar age, and then previous to that was a stellar polar age. And so he's getting into polar symbolism. And it seems to me like a lot of our symbols that we have today go back to these previous ages. And I think that it's possible, too, that these groups overlapped in time too, that there were groups that were worshiping the moon and worshiping the sun at the same time, and other groups that were still in this sort of stellar polar age or whatever. And so he gets into the polar symbolism. So I see a lot of things, if you've checked out enough of my videos, you know, I think a lot of things go back to the pole, the North Pole, or the sacred center sort of idea. I think a lot of things go back to, you know, the North Star and the northern sky and Ursa Major and Ursa Minor and everything else. But he really gets into this double symbolism business. So like Twin Peaks being symbolic of the North. And if I'm not mistaken, I think somewhere in here he does mention the double-headed eagle being kind of a northern sort of thing. And so, but I tend to say that about everything. I tend to think that about everything. So that's really like nothing new. But it's just something to think about, because I do see, you know, Mercury as an example. I think Mercury is basically a northern symbol. He's related to the phallus. He's a psychopomp. So he goes between realms. He goes between spheres. The way he does this is through the world axis, which is kind of the bridge from the northern part of Earth to the northern part of the sky, you know, the northern sky. And so this would be like the symbolic stairway to heaven. So this world axis, or it's also been called the axis mundi, has been basically graphically presented as just a vertical straight line. And so a lot of symbols that have this vertical axis, it's symbolic of the world axis or the cosmic axis. And so this is the middle way. This is sort of the middle point, if you will. And so I do think a lot of things go back to that. So Mercury sometimes having two heads, as an example, you're going to see a lot of alchemical illustrations where Mercury, or an expression of Mercury, has these two heads, or he's half woman and half man, something along these lines. You know, Mercury is known as being androgynous. So it's this 2-in-1 sort of concept. And so the fact that he relates to this middle way, or this middle point, to me personally, you know, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I break it down, but I haven't looked that deep into it. I would actually be very curious to see what like high-level Freemasons say about this.
I ask you about some tarot cards.
Yeah, go for it, dude. Okay, cool.
thought?
Actually, just real quick, LC King mentioned what I brought up that he said. So it's the two eagles of Zeus that find the center of the world. It's a symbol of Horus as well, the bird that sits on the world tree. So that's his opinion.
What's up, LC?
And what's up, LC King? If you want to chime in, dude, I know you're a busy guy or whatever, but we have the link in the chat. I'll paste it again. You're more than welcome to join us and chime in, but it's all good, dude, obviously, if it doesn't work out. So
Well, that's
perhaps,
pretty interesting.
yeah, perhaps we'll be blessed with a LC King visit here, but obviously no guarantees. So what were you going to say regarding tarot cards?
What's your thoughts on the Hierophant?
It's fascinating, dude. It's actually similar sort of stuff to what I was kind of just bringing up, but so the Hierophant card, so his name, his full name is the Pope's full name is Pontifex Maximus. And so that means the ultimate bridge builder. And so he literally symbolically represents a bridge between Earth and the heavens. So he represents a bridge between humanity and God. And so he's kind of like this mediator sort of figure. He's kind of the guardian of the gates, if you will. And so he's often depicted, you probably see crossed keys below his feet, right? Somewhere?
Yeah.
Yeah, so these keys to me are kind of like the keys to cross this threshold or cross this bridge or cross this path, if you will. And this makes a lot of sense that he would represent this. Notice that he's in between two pillars. And so he represents that middle way, that middle path. Which I think we can all embody and represents an aspect of all of us, you know. But the Hierophant, he's the keeper of esoteric doctrines. He's the keeper of secrets. He has a lot of information that a lot of people wish they had, and so the number 5 represents a lot of the stuff that I just brought up and just mentioned to you. So the number 5 to me is a number that basically exists and metaphysically and even physically, when you draw it out and look at the math and everything else, it represents a threshold between the physical and the metaphysical. It represents the threshold between the material and the spiritual. And so it has a lot of connections with pi and phi. And when you look into those numbers and the mathematics behind those numbers, they're essentially infinite. So it has a relationship with the golden mean and the golden spiral. So this card very much is related to the 5-pointed star. And the Egyptians, their underworld was called the Duat or Tuat, and the symbol that they had to indicate the Duat was actually a 5-pointed star. So the 5-pointed star is ancient. The number 5 seems to me to always go back to these ancient gods, like really, really old gods, like some of the primordial gods. So even like Lovecraft and stuff, he makes reference to some of the gods that he writes about, some of the deities that he writes about, having a reverence for the number 5, using the 5-pointed star in like their architecture and things like that. And so he represents the bridge to these older deities, these older gods. And so the number 5, right? Humans have a relationship with the number 5. We have 5 fingers, 5 main appendages. And so we're bonded to the number 5, in so many different ways. And the fact, too, that the Hierophant card is, corresponds with Taurus, which is ruled by Venus. Venus, over the course of 8 years, makes a 5-petaled flower in the night sky, from the perspective of Earth. So there you have the 5 again with all of that. And then also, too, it's really crazy to me that Roman numeral 5 is a V, right? And you have that Venus. And then when you look at Taurus in the night sky, you see this gigantic V. So Taurus has 2 big bright stars, one brighter than the other, as its eyes within this gigantic V. The other thing I'll say regarding this bridge sort of concept is that the Hierophant, the Hebrew letter that corresponds with it is Vav, which means nail. And so to me, for a long time, dude, I was like, what nail? What does nail have to do with like any of this stuff, And then I realized at a certain point, oh, gotcha. Okay, so the nail binds. The nail connects. It connects 2 pieces of wood the same way a bridge connects 2 places together, right? The same way the Pope is symbolically a bridge. He's the bridge builder, which is a very mercurial sort of idea as well, because as I said, Mercury uses the world axis as a bridge to go between realms. And I think it's fascinating that I'm saying that the Stairway to Heaven has this correspondence with the northern sky, because one of the alternative names for Polaris, the pole star, which is in the middle of the heavens in the northern sky, is actually the nail star, or it's known as the sky nail. So here you have this nail symbolism again with the northern sky as it relates to this sort of heavenly Stairway to Heaven sort of concept or whatever. But the last thing I'll say about this too is that, or the last thing that's coming to mind is that the nail binds things together, and ether, the 5th element, there's that 5 again, also binds things together as well. And so there's this idea that ether or spirit itself is the ultimate binder and brings things together. The spirit is the ultimate bridge between everything, between the elements.
You ever read the Da Vinci Code?
No, I haven't.
So I read it and took a couple things out of it. One of them was they alluded to female popes, and it made me immediately think of the Hierophant as being feminine, and the V symbolic of a vagina.
Yes.
And even kind of looking at him now with the red robe kind of gives me, a bloody or a menstrual kind of thought. It's almost like he is the vagina, or she is. And when you talk about there being a bridge between the material and the spiritual, there is, that kind of makes sense in the sense that the woman brings the new life through, so to speak, this bridge. And when you say nail, I couldn't help but keep thinking of navel. I don't know
Ooh,
how similar those two words are, but I thought
that's very interesting. You're bringing up great points.
um, there was one other. Well, also you tied in the Venus connection, which is obviously feminine,
Yeah.
and and yeah, but just in the Da Vinci Code, they said, well, there used to be a time that there were female popes, and the church wiped out all these females and made it just like a strictly a masculine thing. So I don't know how true any of that is, but it just got my little brain stewing away on me.
No, dude, this is fantastic. I'm into it. I have to mention there's a number of things that are coming to mind now, but you're spot on with some of this stuff. The average.
Nobody would ever think of the Pope being female. That's the other thing is I tend to think in opposites as the norm. And so, I mean, you would never think of a female Pope. We're told that the Pope is Papa, the father, the head of the church.
Exactly. 100. You're spot on, dude. There are actually some early tarot decks where it's a papess, not a papa, not a pope, not a father. Where it's actually some original early tarot decks actually still show a feminine pope, a female pope.
Yeah, the main deck has the Pope kind of androgynous looking. Now this version has him with the beard on it, but I think the Rider-Waite deck has him kind of like plain face. It's not too specific, and it's almost like they were hiding the feminine aspect. Is what I was thinking.
Yeah, dude, exactly. No. I'll show you a card that really speaks to this, related to the feminine and related to the 5. It's 5 days that are the average number of days for menstruation of actual bleeding. And so that's another thing that's really fascinating here is the number 5 correspondence with all of this stuff.
And I will say that is true.
Yeah. She attests to this. And one time I asked her, because I had read it in a book, the 5 correspondence with all of this stuff. And I asked her, I'm like, how long do you bleed for on average? How many days? And without prompting an actual number or anything, she just said 5. And I'm like, well, that's exactly what I'm reading over here. And so the significance of 5, really, it's truly mystical. And it symbolically is that bridge. And even when you look at our base 10 sort of numbering sequence, I know there's people who have different opinions about, what sort of system we should be using that way. But it's right there in the middle between 0 and 10 or 1 and 10. So it's right at that point where it's like it is this threshold sort of number, I think, between 0 and 10. And so it's interesting too. There's a lot of cards in the tarot in the minor arcana that are number 5, and they tend to relate to struggle or conflict or something like that. And to me, this kind of eluded me for a while, but I think once I started wrapping my head around the number 5 business. And I'm like, well, if 5 is like this threshold number, and if 5 is in between the 0 and the 10, it's almost like any arc or any kind of narrative where like you're going to have conflict along the way. You're going to have some sort of struggle. There's going to be some sort of hill or mountain to climb or whatever. And so the 5 kind of represents that as well.
Yeah. Usually a challenge card.
It's a challenge card, yeah.
When it comes up in the minor arcana.
Yeah, dude. But let me show you this real quick, if you don't mind. And I'll make my screen larger here. Or can I do that?
Yeah, I think you can just do full screen. There you go. That's larger.
This is good. All right, so I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Thoth deck, but this is and it'll focus here in a second, I think.
If we're lucky.
It will. There you go. So you just gotta be patient, right?
There you go.
Okay, so this is the Thoth deck. This is the Hierophant card. So notice there's 5-pointed stars all over the place. But notice that the 5-pointed stars are all coming from Isis, which is basically an expression of Venus down below. And so to your point, all of the Hierophant's power is coming from the feminine. Coming from Venus, Isis, whatever you want to say. And notice that she's also darker, but she's perfect as well. And so it kind of just speaks to a lot of the things we were talking about, some of the things that you had brought up already. And I will say, too, it's my personal opinion, Yeah, we'll try and get that to focus now. But it's my personal opinion that when you see a figure of authority or power and they're throned, if you see a man that's sitting in a throne on a chair, he is emulating the feminine, in my opinion. He's basically emulating the queen. And so I think that's kind of intriguing too, because the Hierophant is always shown like this. And I'm trying to change the layout here. And so whether it's the emperor, a lot of early emperors look very, very effeminate. A lot of other cards where you think that it's supposed to be this masculine sort of figure, they look kind of feminine, you know, especially in older decks and everything else. So I just thought I would point that out, is that the throne is symbolic of the bridal chair. And to me, it relates to feminine symbolism in that a woman can move mountains and do amazing work, do her life's work from the confines of her homestead or castle or home or village or whatever you want to say.
Woo!
And it's more of a sort of manly, masculine sort of thing, traditionally, in traditional symbolism, to go out and bring home the bacon, to go and conquest and travel and journey and all these other things. Whereas the woman is at home taking care of the hearth and the children and doing all that kind of stuff.
But you got to keep mama happy.
You have to, dude. Exactly.
There's something that kept slipping out of my mind, but I want to throw it at you. It's going to kind of just humor me here. What comes first, New Year's Eve or New Year's Day?
I don't know. I feel like this might be.
Is this a trick question?
Yeah, it feels like a trick question, but I mean, I'm inclined.
What was that? Say again.
What's first, New Year's Eve or New Year's Day?
I mean,
all right.
I'm inclined to say New Year's Eve. I haven't thought about this too much, but that's my first answer. I'm prepared to be wrong on this one, though.
Okay, Christmas Eve or Christmas?
Christmas Eve.
Eve always precedes the main event. The Bible would have you believe that Adam came after Eve, but in her very name, she comes first.
Nice.
That's
excellent.
Awesome, man.
Very cool. Yeah. Okay, so it was tricky in a different way than I expected.
It made you, it's one of those ones where it makes you second guess the knowledge you already have, but you just should go with the knowledge you know.
Right. Totally. That's great, dude. I like that. Rubestar, do you have a channel or something? You look, for some reason, familiar, but I could be completely mistaken.
Yeah, I got a channel. I got too many subs as it is.
Well, you can shout out if you want, or if you have anything you're working on that you want to let people know about.
Oh, I'm working on episode 4. It's going to be my greatest podcast to date.
Sweet, man.
Yeah.
Right on, dude. What do you like to talk about on your show?
I do high quality nonsense.
Okay. Right on.
So, basically, the philosophy is we're censored so much. I mean, I've done videos that YouTube said, no, you can't do that. I called into Howard Stern one time. I was the first one, as far as I know, to bring up 9/11 to him. I can't even play that full audio on my channel because YouTube will call it hate speech. So I just have a snippet of it. So my goal basically is to fly under the radar with high quality nonsense and dash a little facts or different points of view from time to time. So knowledge through silly entertainment, basically.
Got it. Right on, man.
Yeah, you got time for a few more questions, or you want to move on to something else?
Personally, I think you're bringing up great questions. I'm enjoying things, so yeah, feel free.
So one thing that always baffles me, and it kind of perturbs me too, is people throw up Baphomet. What is the Baphomet? What's the origin of the Baphomet? And is the devil card the Baphomet?
Right. Yeah, good question. I will recommend people, and I'll keep this part brief. If people really want to know about Baphomet, I suggest they check out work by Alex Rivera and Tracy Twyman. And so she had a huge weave with Baphomet, and she has a couple of excellent books on the topic. And as far as I'm concerned, she has dove deeper than anyone else on that subject, and she has a personal sort of like storyline with it. And she did original research, and she paid for certain works of art to get photographed and be made public, and she's paid for certain works to get translated over so that she can, you know, write about it and things like that. In my opinion, dude, I think Baphomet essentially, I mean, it's another mercurial figure. You know, it's this the feminine and the masculine, or the angelic and the demonic coming together. And so I think that Mercury and his sort of androgynous nature has been expressed many, many, many times over. And I think Baphomet is just kind of another version of that, personally. And so there's a lot of theories about the original Baphomet. I know one of the things that she wrote about is this idea that Baphomet was once a severed head. Some people say it was the severed head of St. John the Baptist.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Isn't that a good one?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
even the sound, Bapho Baptist.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And so that's a hefty weave if people want to dive into that.
Wow.
And so it's this idea that severed heads could be used as divination tools, essentially, and that you can have conversations with spirits through the head, and that Baphomet actually might be more of a title than anything else. But her story is really interesting because she basically was channeling an entity that was calling themselves Baphomet through the Ouija board. And so this prompted a whole entire multi-year long sort of study for her. What I will say, I think that, I mean, once again, I think a lot of things go back to the world axis. I think a lot of things go back to Mercury and this northern symbolism, polar symbolism, stellar symbolism. And Baphomet, if you notice, has this pole or phallus coming out of its lap when you look at like the Eliphas Levi Baphomet. And to me, there's this arch actually that goes right over it. And I'm like, this is the firmament, this is the dome, and this is the world axis. And so he is like the synthesis of the above and the below. And so I just kind of see him as like a modern take of this mercurial sort of figure, and maybe perhaps a little more extreme. I think for modern sensibilities, actually, you know, that a lesser deity that doesn't have kind of those striking features is not going to be noticed as much, is not going to be as probably as effective. So I think that that's kind of what I think about it, basically.
So sounds like the devil card isn't necessarily Baphomet.
There's definitely symbolism that overlaps for sure.
Similarities, but not necessarily, is what I'm getting now after this hearing you talk.
I think that the devil too, I see a lot of overlapping symbolism. So if somebody wants to make that claim and say that it's the same sort of thing, same sort of idea, I can see the point that they're making personally, so the devil card corresponds with Capricorn. Capricorn is a sea goat, so it's half fish, half goat. Certainly, obviously, Baphomet has a goat head, right? And he's doing the as above, so below thing. I think with the sea goat, the sea goat's encoding as above, so below as well. His goat-like nature can climb to great heights, but also its fishy, oceanic side also can dive deep into the ocean. So I think what you're getting with the sea goat is an animal or a creature, a hybrid creature that can go really high, climb these mountains. Goats are great climbers, but also it can go down into the depths of the ocean. And also the devil too, it's common, right, for the devil card to have a woman and a man, on each side. So to me, this is kind of just another expression of this as above, so below, masculine, feminine, black and white. Duality, polarity sort of thing.
Okay, so speaking of Capricorn, my birthday is January 7th. And so what's your thoughts on the chariot?
Oh, dude. Hey, let's just continue talking about Northern symbolism, right? Because it's really, I think it's really, it's encoded in so many different things. So if you look at the charioteer, I'm not sure if the version you have does this, but You tell me, is there a star on his head by chance?
No, but I know what you're talking about. Let me grab my other book that has the pictures in it.
Yeah, sure. So the Rider Waite version is the most well-known version for doing this. But the Rider Waite, the charioteer has a star on his head, and
He's got
he's
like
in
moons
between.
on his arms.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's in between these figures. You know, these could be the four cardinal directions. Some people would say the four fixed signs. You know, he generally has a canopy of stars above his head. This is interesting because even the Hebrew letter that corresponds with the chariot card is Cheth, which means canopy. And so, like in traditional like Jewish weddings, you're going to see four pillars or posts with a canopy over them. You know, it's kind of this once again this alchemical marriage, union of opposites sort of idea. But the charioteer, though, he's in a chariot, which to me personally, when I think about journey symbolism, I can't not think about afterlife symbolism. So whether we're talking about the boat, the chariot, the the horse, any sort of vehicle or any way to get around, it is a terrestrial way to go from point A to point B. But the deeper symbolism behind it is that it's symbolic of the journey to the afterlife, is that this is the vehicle that's going to take you to the underworld. And so it's been said that the path of the chariot is the path of death. And so there are a number of groups, in my opinion, that have talked about the underworld, basically the opening to the underworld, to the Duat, existing in the northern sky. And when you look into chariot symbolism, there's a lot of examples of emperors being depicted with having four horses. And so the number 4 to play with the charioteer and the chariot card, in that the charioteer is considered to be the fifth element. He's considered to be the fifth thing. So he's like the fifth point. He's the middle point within those four pillars. And so the number 5, as I mentioned earlier with the Hierophant card, it represents this kind of threshold or sort of gateway or whatever. And so the number 5, like when you look at a cross, right, the number 4 comes to mind. You have 4 arms, 4 quadrants, but there's that fifth point right in the middle. That fifth point represents a transcendence or an ascension point. So when you see crosses at a graveyard, right, at a cemetery, to me the cross represents crossing over. So he's in between a cross. He's in the middle of a cross with those four posts or 4 pillars. And so when I see the chariot and the charioteer, and he has that North Star on his head, I mean, I just think about all the things that I've kind of already mentioned, you know, polar symbolism, stellar symbolism, the northern sky, the stairway to heaven, all that kind of stuff. So that's what I tend to think about. But the other thing is that wheel symbolism, huge, you know, the wheel of heaven, and the heavens turn around one specific point. It turns around the pole star, the North Star. And so if you've seen time-lapse photos of stars going around a fixed point in the sky, you're looking at Polaris. You're looking at the pole star. And so the heavens have been likened to a chariot wheel or a mill or something along those lines. And so it's speaking to that as well, which is heavily related to Cancer, right? So cycles and movement and, you know, things like that.
He has like a dreidel, or it's a peg through a circle on his shield with 2 wings.
Yeah. Yep.
So that lines up exactly with what you're saying as far as a center point.
Yes, exactly. Yep. Sometimes he has a like a dreidel or like a spinning top sort of thing.
Yeah, like a spinning top kind of a thing.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the world axis, man, in my opinion.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, I don't want to take up all your time. That was more than I thought I'd get. Thank you very much. I think you're a wealth of knowledge.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it, dude. Yeah, I'll have to check out your channel and things like that. Some people were saying in the chat, were you on Old World Florida, or were you doing stuff with Longo or something? Is that what I saw?
Yeah, I called in a couple of times, and that's where I found you. Boy, he's got a great fan base, let me tell you. I think he's really he's there's going to be a lot of good things. I think the world's going to benefit greatly from that guy's work.
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
hell yeah,
he's
man.
tapping in for sure.
I really appreciate him, man. Yeah, I like his fan base as well, and I always have a good time whenever I'm on. So thanks for checking all that stuff out and for calling in, dude. We'll be doing this again, man. If you have any other questions or whatever, you should swing by.
Yeah, come on back.
All right. Thank you.
All right,
Sounds
man.
good.
Take
All right,
care, dude.
nice to meet you.
See ya.
Later.
Bye. Nice.
Ooh, that was a good weave.
Yeah?
Yeah, nice.
Oh, yeah. Dude, I'm into it.
Yeah, I know.
That was fun.
Yeah, the right man for the job.
I think so. Yeah, totally.
Yes.
There we go. Old World Micmac right here saying, Rube Star and Mario, the crossover I didn't know I needed. If that pops up for you guys, it may not because our internet is super slow.
Nice.
But yeah, very cool. That was fun.
Sweet.
I'm going to throw the link out there in the chat once again.
Yeah, definitely. Go for it.
everyone, if anybody wants to call in. So yeah, Red. You never know what people are going to bring up.
Yeah, I know. That's the fun of taking calls, really. It's exciting. It adds another element. Element of mystery, intrigue, camaraderie.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So the one thing I'll say about polar symbolism, northern symbolism, is that I think that I just feel like it's an important weave to kind of understand. And I know that this is kind of what I tend to go on about generally, but I look at it as a very foundational sort of thing. And so, Native American totem poles, that pole, to me, it's like whether they're aware of it or not, it appears to me like it's a central sort of icon kind of totem. Obviously, it's a totem pole, right?
Right.
But the phallus or the pole is one of these core old symbols that cannot be ignored, that needs to be kind of understood, that predates the cross. And so when I think of the cross, I think of that vertical axis. That vertical axis came first before there was a crossbeam, and people who have studied the cross and the nature of the cross have said very similar things, that the vertical axis, the standing stone as an example, or the pole itself, predates the cross. As old as the cross is, there's something that predates the cross, and it's just the vertical line. It's just that vertical post, right? And so even voodoo, there's like voodoo ceremonies and rituals and stuff that make use of this pole. There's the maypole, all of these different things. And I think that it's kind of built into our sort of psychology and awareness and maybe spiritual framework or something to kind of acknowledge this. But it's so old and ancient, I think that obviously for most people, it's kind of lost on them or whatever. But
Yeah.
I always get stoked to talk about it.
Yeah.
So I think that symbolically, a lot of solar symbolism and lunar symbolism goes back to the pole. It goes back to the north, from what I gather. It appears to me kind of like Longo thinks that things come from the north. We came from the north. People come from the north, or this northern sort of idea. I think that's true, and I think things return back to the north.
Right.
And when I refer to that, I'm referring to the northern sky and the northern portion of Earth and everything else. So
Yeah.
people familiar with my channel will know that this is my jam. But
No, definitely.
anyway,
Yeah.
it's fun to chat about.
Heck yeah. Nice.
Cool. So what else is on your mind, baby?
I mean, let's see. I know you brought up Libra stuff and having thoughts about Libra and underworld realms, and we are entering the dark side of the zodiac. We're going into the darkness. The days are getting shorter. The veil is thinning, as typical of this time of year. So I don't know if you did have anything specific.
Yeah, we could talk about Libra.
I mean, I figure you mentioned it, so
Yeah.
I figure if there were anything, if there's anything that was like a burning thing that you wanted to get off your chest.
Right. Just kind of curious, anyone in the chat, my Cherie or someone, is Longo not live tonight? I was kind of curious about that because I saw that we were going live at the same time. And I was actually really interested to see what he was going to talk about. But obviously we're here, not over there. And he's been known to start kind of late sometimes, so maybe he'll still get going. But yeah, I mean, a broken record over here. I really think the scales, when you look at scale symbolism, one of my favorite books. I'm going to shout it out again because I get so much out of it. You want to give me the book behind the cloth? There you go, on the right. Cool. Thank you. Oh, he never went live. Gotcha. Oh, I see. Damn. Hopefully everything's cool. Thanks for the update. So this book right here, if you followed my work, you've probably seen me shout it out before. But this book, The Penguin Dictionary of Symbols, I'm pretty sure this book used to go by a different name. And it was written by this guy named Jean Chevalier. And it is an awesome book on so many different levels. If you want to take your symbolic sort of journey seriously and you don't have like a reference book, but you would like a reference book, that is the book to get, in my opinion. So Jean Chevalier is a French guy. He wrote this book, I'm pretty sure in the 60s. It went by a different name. And then the Penguin publisher, they picked it up at some point. So now it's the Penguin Dictionary of Symbols.
Okay.
And I've been so impressed with this book. Like it continually impresses me. One of the reasons why I'm impressed with this book and I can recommend it so highly is because he incorporates world axis northern symbolism. And this is one of the books that got me hip to this stuff because I would look up something, the tower, and he was saying it's a world axis symbol. I'm like, okay. And then you look up something else, and the wheel, it's the heavens revolving around the world axis. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, the world axis. And sometimes he calls it the axis mundi. I'm like, what is this? And then that was a big part of my journey of being able to understand what this actually means. And so in my personal opinion, really seasoned symbologists incorporate world axis symbolism. If you're only incorporating solar symbolism and lunar symbolism and the planets and the astrology signs, you're missing a part of the puzzle. There's another piece here, and the piece is the world axis. It's northern polar symbolism. What's up, The Branch?
Oh, what's up, Joshua?
Hey, I'll finish this thought, and then we'll bring him on. And so he incorporates it. So when it's relevant and when it's appropriate, he brings it up. And so he has really helped flesh out my understanding of this stuff, right? So this is not my interpretation. This isn't stuff that I'm like personally just like, I mean, obviously I do come up with my own sort of connections or weaves or whatever, but it's thanks to all of these guys, you know, all of these different authors and stuff. And so when you look up scales in the Dictionary of Symbols, he makes a reference that the vertical portion of the scale, which is what the scale needs to even work in old-timey scales, you know, with the two pans, that is symbolic of the world axis.
I mean, it makes sense to me. Sorry.
Go for it. No.
Okay, so the whole weighing of the souls ritual, I mean, that to me is another encoding of this exact thing to me. I mean, obviously the scale has its own job, but it actually being more of a deeper symbol. And that's the reason why they're using it, because it's like implying that, hey, you're here to have your soul weighed or your heart weighed against the feather.
Yeah.
And guess what? The center of the scale is actually what you're going to go through.
Exactly.
So it's like literally, is your heart weighed on the scale? And they're like, see you later. Or you don't go through, or Lord, who knows what happens.
Isn't it amazing when you have that understanding that the symbolism becomes layered now?
Oh,
right? More so than it was before.
Big time.
And so he says that scales are emblematic of the world axis, of the cosmic axis. And he says, and I brought this up on Vibrant last night with Chance. And he says that literally in China, Ursa Major and Minor were considered the jade scales. And so literally Ursa Major and Minor, we look at them as dippers a lot of the times, right? They're vessels. They've been looked at as pans as well. And so the world axis is the vertical portion of the cosmic scales, and the two pans are literally Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, at least according to some, I believe he says Chinese secret societies and stuff like that.
Okay.
And so to me, that makes a ton of sense on so many different levels. Let me see if I should just read a small portion of this. This is what I read last night on Vibrant. 1 second.
Thanks for hanging out, everybody. Super, super fun in the chat going on. Appreciate you guys being here, coming and seeing what's going on.
Okay, I'm going to read this real quick.
Go for it.
Okay, so this is part of his entry regarding just scales. This isn't Libra.
Okay.
Right? So when the pans are in balance at the equinoxes, the pointer on the scales or the sword, which is identical with it, becomes the symbol of the changeless center. That's what Polaris represents. That's what the North represents. The polar axis, which stands for it, points to the Great Bear, Ursa Major, the Big Dipper, which in ancient China was called the jade scales. Sometimes, however, the two pans of the celestial scales were represented by the Great and Little Bear. Ritual texts of Chinese secret societies add that the scales in the City of Willows are magnificent and shine like stars and constellations, of which they are effectively the reflection at the foot of the cosmic axis. Furthermore, the Sanskrit word for scales, tula, is the same as that for the Holy Land located in the north, that is at the pole.
Ah.
So he makes a direct northern polar correspondence, stellar correspondence with the scales. So that's why this book is so valuable, because he totally understands. He knows, yeah, exactly.
He's open. He's open to it.
And he's done his research.
Right.
Awesome. Let's say hi to the branch.
All right.
A friend of the channel, right? What's up, Joshua?
And then the very same thing I was wanting to say, then you read.
I was just going to say I concur with the scales also kind of representing like half of the year. So I was imagining one of the pans being spring equinox, the other pan being fall equinox, with the center would line up with the Pentecost in that case, or even the menorah for that matter, because there's 7 candles on it, or lamps rather. And furthermore, in the fall, you would bring grain to be weighed and measured. So you mentioned that on your Instagram post concerning the scales. So I think that's pretty solid as well. In the spring is first fruits, which is like barley, maybe some other things, and then later on you have wheat, grapes, those sorts of things, nuts.
Right.
So your fruits of your labor are weighed by these scales, and it's by these scales that all money is kind of fixed. And understanding that, I think, makes prophecy kind of make a lot more sense in Revelation, because of the black horse holding scales. And when he rides out, the economy goes kaput and everything loses value. And so those scales always crave balance and parity, but that'll be a time when they're not balanced. It's a great period of turmoil, perhaps.
Right.
And the Hebrew perspective on scales, it's often associated with the tribe of Dan, which also has a snake as their symbol. So you could imagine that snake even being on the scales, like up the tree, like the tree in the Garden of Eden. I kind of see that as the world tree. There's some theories that tree of knowledge actually was the tallest tree on earth, and it extended to the heavens and was the world tree.
Whoa. Yeah.
In Isaiah 12, it talks about that tree being cut down, that it deceived the nations, and all the animals and people would gather under it because it was so huge and all this. So I often wonder about that, if Yggdrasil and that might be similar in some way. But,
right. Totally.
Yeah. So I just wanted to kind of mention those things about Libra, and just also add that we just passed like Judgment Day in September, and then we're going into Tabernacles now. So this is all very much a Libra period of time when we're supposed to be departing from the cities, escaping tyranny, much like the first Exodus in the spring. The second one's supposed to occur in a time like this. So I don't know, I just find all that very interesting, and the weighing of souls and the harvest moon is the one we had in September, for instance. So thanks for letting me share that.
Dude, of course. For sure, man. Is Judgment Day, is that associated with an archangel by chance? Is it Michael? Does he hold scales? Because I know that there's a holy day, a holiday that makes reference to an angel, and he's typically associated with scales, and his day is within Libra, if I'm not mistaken. Because I almost made a meme about it like 2 years ago, and I came across it a few days ago, and I never posted it or anything like that. But do you have any awareness of that by chance? If not, it's all good.
Well, I do believe that Michael was assigned to govern over Israel as his guardian angel. So, yeah, probably, but I don't know exactly which decans he would rule in that case. Maybe all three for Virgo. Because the thing is about Virgo and Scorpio and Libra is that it used to be different, and then it was split to create Libra. So where are those decans? It's kind of it'd be a good weave to look into that maybe, because that's probably changed. What, I don't know if it's actually changed, but humans have probably changed it. When the angels are still like, "Nah, I still rule this decan. I'm OG.
Hey, dude,
on my throne."
Right. You're like the perfect person to run this by. So one of the things I haven't mentioned yet with this Libra axis sort of stuff is that the scales, like if you just make a little icon or glyph of scales, you're probably going to draw a cross, and then you're going to have the pans coming from the arms of the cross, right? At least that's how I kind of do it. And when I was on Vibrant, I showed the traditional weighing of the souls ritual with Anubis and stuff. And the scales look like a cross, right? It almost looks like a deliberate, obvious cross. And then Jason Quit, who was on Vibrant last week, who I was on with. Lots of Vibrant these days.
Yeah.
Lots of Vibranting.
Another one coming up this coming next Wednesday.
Yeah, and you'll be on that one.
Yep. It's our final Astro Herbs episode.
Yeah, totally. So Jason Quit, who's like a Egyptologist, author, researcher guy, he's the one who pointed it out the first time on the first Vibrant that I'm referring to. And hey, dude, sorry about that. We got dropped. Next time, by the way, if we drop out again, you should serenade the people with your lovely voice. Dude, you know what we talk about all the time? When you made Jim's video and they broke the mold with you.
I really enjoyed making that.
Oh, dude, I'll just be walking around the house and I'll just sing that portion of it. They broke the mold with you.
Well,
you do it so much better.
So I thought it was pretty witty.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. Dude.
It was perfect.
And so, what was I going to say? So there's a cross with that scale. And to me, it's obvious that the cross relates to the scales as well. You have, once again, the vertical axis, and then you need the arms to hold the pans to do the weighing of everything. So I was thinking about this, and I'm like, interesting that the scales are kind of cross-like in a way. And then it's opposite Aries, which is the lamb.
Yeah.
And then we have the crucifixion. And then obviously the Lamb of God being crucified. And I'm like, holy shit, is there a relationship here between the cross of Libra of the scales and then also what's happening with its opposite sign, which would be Aries? So just a thought. I don't know if anything comes to mind with that, but I just wanted to put that out there because I've been thinking about it lately.
Yeah, and I think that's emphasized in the crucifixion narrative as well, because the thief on the right was saved on the cross while the thief on the left didn't accept him. So I think it's like a tip. The scales are never equal when you see them. They're always tipped a little bit. So I think that's kind of a hat tip to the, scales themselves, maybe always favoring the light over dark or something like that. The right hand's always stronger than the left, Children of light, children of dark, that kind of motif. And a lot of times, I don't know if this is popular all over the country, but in the Bible Belt of West Virginia, there's often 3 crosses on hillsides as you're driving like down the interstate or whatever. Well, the central one will be gold and the other 2 will be silver. So I always think of the sun and moon and gold and silver and things like that whenever I see the crosses, and it reminds me of that story too. And I think I mentioned this before, but the shin is accented on the right to make shh, and if it's accented on the left, it's in the snake. snake makes this sound, and its scales has scales on its body, of course. So I
Oh,
think there's
yeah.
a mystery there that's being unraveled in these times of revelation. But
Definitely, dude. Yeah.
I remember now what I was wanting to say about the. Uh, I think you mentioned a ladder to heaven or something earlier, and that is the H. A series of H's is a stairway to heaven or a ladder to heaven. So the shin, when you put your finger to your two front teeth, that symbol, that's the breath of life being blown into the atom Cadmon, and that is apparently the breath of life. So I always feel like I'm telling a secret when I talk about that, but that's, I think that might be where the Silence of the Lambs comes from. So like you got this theme of scapegoat in the fall with the Libra, then you got the Lamb of God and spring with the Passover ritual. So you got the lamb and the goat, which
Right.
in the Egyptian lore, the lamb comes from the abyss, the water, and so does the sea goat, of course. So I think that you can compare the two again as like a left and right hand motif. It's really
Excellent.
layered, like you said. I feel sometimes mad diving into these topics because it never ends.
Oh, that's for sure, man. Absolutely. I love the H thing that you just brought up, and it reminds me of Yod He Vav He,
Yeah.
the 4-letter name of God, the Tetragrammaton. What are the odds that there's only 4 letters, but 2 of them repeat, and it's the H, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's really interesting to me. I'm like, okay, so what's going on with the H here? Maybe it's speaking to what you're talking about or something.
Yeah, I would say so. And hey means window. So, when God closes a door, he opens a window, as they say, right? So it seems that he's emphasizing that, I guess. But the Vav portion of that, which is W or V, is the torso. So he mentioned earlier navel. I kind of agreed with that because it's in the abdomen area. That would be the Vav portion of the temple. Yod is the head. He would be your arms. Vav is your torso. Your bottom He are your legs. So you could say like the upper He is masculine, the bottom He is feminine, perhaps, if you wanted to assign gender to it.
Totally, and kind of to Rubestar's point earlier regarding the navel and the nail. If Polaris is the sky nail or the nail star, it's interesting that point in the heavens and the north itself and sacred center symbolism in general, which I think is just kind of a fractal or a reflection of earlier northern symbolism, more than likely. The center has always been likened to a navel. And so the Omphalos stone is related to navels and things like that. And, so even Nuit or Newt, when she's doing her thing and she's acting as the firmament, essentially, her navel is like, oftentimes, I believe it's like dead center at the top of the dome, at the top of the firmament, which reminds me that the He, the window correspondence with He, reminds me of the firmament. I think it's talking about the firmament as being a window, perhaps.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's a good one.
It talks about that during the flood narrative about how the portals in the deep and the firmament are both opened. So it showers and floods at the same time.
Nice.
It'd be like your upper and lower He.
Yeah, the Hebrew letter correspondence with the tarot, it's switched actually over time, but most people acknowledge that He corresponds with the star card, and the star card, the alternative name for the star card is daughter of the firmament. So there's kind of another connection there in the tarot, at least, that He is a reference to this.
And that star card makes me think of Sirius and the Nile River, because it's the heliacal rising of Sirius that heralds the flooding of the Nile, and she's kneeling down, pouring out the waters, kind of like Aquarius in a sense too. So in Aquarius, it'd be Fomalhaut would be kind of a feature star there, I guess.
Right.
Since we're talking about stars, can I mention one more thing about the zodiac here and the H?
Of course, and I've got a question for you too. Whenever you're wrapped up with that.
So I also think of when I think of Stairway to Heaven or Ladder to Heaven, the train tracks are also H's in a sense too.
Yeah.
And I imagine the Mazzaroth or Zodiac or the Ecliptic, I should say, as being a railroad And so that would make Aries the engine and Pisces the caboose, in a sense. So I've always wondered and pondered on train symbolism because it's in the occult all the time, but you can never find out what it means. And and so I'm afraid it's one of those secrets that when you find it, you wish you hadn't. But at any rate, that's something you also have in a wedding ceremony. The back of a wedding gown is a train. You also
true.
train a vine or a tree, which is a big theme in all the end of the world narratives, the pruning and harvest. So, training and trains, there's something there, man. I don't know.
Interesting. I'm pretty sure Crowley put a train in his tarot deck, or at least alludes to it, with the Chariot card.
That would make sense then. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for telling me that.
Yeah, you should check it out. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it before, but just think locomotive when you look at that card, and it definitely comes through, and it makes sense for his era and stuff too that he would probably put that in there. But hey, man, go ahead.
Can I mention one more thing? Because this is all I really had after that. You mentioned some follows.
Yeah.
Stone. That's also representative of whenever the Titans were around and Saturn was eating his children. Rhea gave him a stone. And so when she ate that stone instead of Zeus, that's kind of like setting the stage for the stone thing that happens a lot later on in like not just Greek, but even in Hebrew. The stone is also the pineal gland. So it's just a really wild weave. I didn't want to go on and on about it, but I just think the stone is something to always pay attention to. That is a really powerful symbol.
Absolutely.
And it's also the enemy of the giants. David uses a stone to slay Goliath with a sling.
Oh, right.
But anyway, your question. Sorry.
No, that's a great point, man. I love that. No, this is awesome. I tend to just real quick with stone symbolism. Everyone here knows my bias with everything, but I see central stone sort of symbolism. So I think when I think of the Philosopher's Stone, I think of this central sort of stone or this central mountain. In a lot of ways, I think central mountain symbolism and stone symbolism is very much related, to each other. So I think that the stone really is kind of like this sacred center sort of object or whatever. But anyways, aside the point, the lodestone would be one example of this, I guess. I was just going to ask you about shepherd symbolism, because that was something I got into last sign with the hermit. And whenever I do get into these weaves, biblical weaves and whatever, I always think about you, dude. And just, wonder what you might. Man. No, dude, it's the truth for sure. And so I always wonder what you might say about it or think about it or whatever. So if you have anything regarding the shepherd or any thoughts about it, I'm still very much like inspired to learn more. What I basically put forward was that I think that the hermit card is an elder shepherd, essentially. And I think that a lot of the symbolism kind of matches up. The solitary nature of the hermit, the fact that he has a staff or, a crook sometimes actually he has. The fact that he's wearing like a cloak. Sometimes he's wearing kind of like a shawl sort of thing, I've noticed.
He's hunched forward as though he's been carrying weight on his shoulders.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, he's hunched forward. And he's associated with Virgo, the Virgin Mary, which is opposite Pisces. So I think for so many different reasons, I kind of see him as an elder shepherd. I guess, do you see that? And then does this conjure up anything that is worth bringing up, I guess?
Yes, I would agree. And as you were describing it, it reminded me of that phrase, heavy is the head that wears the crown. So, after his years of study and meditation and fasting, perhaps he would have achieved this state where he has a crown. And I think that's emblematic also of his lantern, which is the yod, which is every single Hebrew letter is a composite of so many different yods. Now they might have to be stretched or manipulated, but it's some number of yods. So that's like the fundamental primordial letter. or the logos is actually in his lantern. So when we're talking about having a light, or if you have a light, you don't hide it under a bushel or whatever. It's hard to hide that light, when your crown chakra is lit up, you're supposed to share that light,
Right.
So the hermit, in one sense, he's alone by nature because he's wanting to spend time with the divine. But what they talk about in the Orthodox Church is the monks would always move out into the wilderness to try and get away from people, and they'd have a monastery. But then what would happen is cities would then crop up around the monasteries. So no matter where that hermit goes, he's a shepherd. His sheep will follow him, right?
Oh.
And this gets into an interesting topic too, because if you have a crown, if you are anointed, and you choose not to do your duty as a shepherd, you can become what's called a fallen shepherd or an idle shepherd. And those are the shepherds that in the parable stand in the city idle, don't do their job. They're not joyful about their labor. They're not trying to save people. And in fact, they might even choose to feast on the lambs or whomever, and abuse them and things like that. So there's other parables, like the parable of the vineyard, that talks about when the Lord returns to his vineyard, he finds his workers abusing the laborers and stuff like that. So he's going to take the kingdom away from them and give it to the meek, us lambs here tonight. So yeah, it's a pretty cool theme. We are all. So if you have a crown chakra on your head right now, you are a shepherd, and shepherd begins with SH. So I'm telling you a secret: you are a shepherd.
Oh, quiet, excellent, dude.
Wolves around. Follow me, lamb. But the shepherd also has a rod. So the rod is always like when you see the crook and flail. You mentioned the crook earlier. The crook is the shepherding tool to gather the sheep with the right hand. And then the rod is what you smite with your left hand. And so if you met wolves or bears or whatever, your primary weapon was a sling to throw stones and also a rod if they got too close. And your job was to lead them back into the sheepfold gate, which is Chet. So that's Cancer, like you were talking about a moment ago. So when it talks about Christ being at the gate or the door, it's talking about him being at the door of the sheepfold gate because he's the good shepherd. An idle shepherd wouldn't care about their sheep and wouldn't sleep in the doorway, but a good shepherd does.
Exactly.
The sheepfold gate is a stone structure that's horseshoe shaped. Where the opening is where the door is, and then it's open to the sky so the sheep can see this night sky. And then you would have a still pool of water within it because sheep won't drink from running water. And then you would sometimes have a watchtower built within the confines of the Chet in order to be your surveillance tower outlook for predators or threats, whatever they may be. So that's kind of the chariot card also, even though it's not so obvious on the chariot card itself, but it's all there.
Totally, dude. That was awesome, man. Thank you so much, honestly, for just riffing here with me on that. I was like so kind of taken back, I guess, a little bit with looking at modern videos of shepherds in Israel still using these same structures and still carrying on the tradition of being a shepherd and sleeping in the doorway and everything else. And literally these structures have been used for a really, really, really long time. That's my understanding, for multiple generations, obviously. And so I was really taken back by the symbolism just in general. So I feel like there's still something, I don't know, there's something kind of brewing in me that wants to either explore it more or read about it more or just talk about it more and things like that.
You can't learn more than by doing it. So get you some sheep and go out there and sleep with them. I mean, you'll see that you'll start to be like, oh, I get it. Shepherds stayed up at night and had stories and songs and stuff, and counting sheep meant you were like going to sleep, counting your sheep.
Exactly.
I had a couple more sheep things.
Please.
So you have to be conceived in the sheepfold gate of Cancer, Chet, in order to be born an Aries lamb. So that's a thing.
Oh, yeah.
And then also, it's popular to put bell around your lead lamb, which is a lot of times called a bellwether. Sometimes that's a castrated ram, but anyway, it's a sheep that's obedient, and it'll always go back to the fold, and so the other sheep will follow it. So if you think about it, being celibate and being crowned in some cases is kind of like being a bellwether. You're always leading the lambs, and that crown is also like I was mentioning earlier, the yod or the logos. You shine that logos or light at the scripture, and then it illuminates the scripture, and then thus you can understand it. So you can, Christ is referred to as the light of the world, and he's the life, the truth, and the way. So when you direct Christ to the Old Testament, it illuminates it. So that old man, he has a light, but also in his head, he probably knows all of the Torah, because in the earlier high priestess card, she's holding the Torah in her lap. And I think she and the hermit have a relationship in a sense. I'm not sure what it would be exactly, but maybe her tutor or something. After all, the logos is the Torah, and the logos is the same thing. And the child she bears in the Empress card is that logos inside her belly. The happiness card shows the baby on the horse. That's him after he's birthed. And of course, you got a corona with the sun. That's also representative of a halo or crown. So thanks for letting me weave on that.
Of course,
dude.
you're always welcome here.
For sure, man. That was awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm totally into it. I'm glad you decided to call in and bestow us with all of that.
Hey, I'll talk to you guys in the future. Keep it real.
All right, dude.
All right,
Take care,
Joshua.
man. Have
a great night.
Sweet. That was cool.
Always a gem.
Totally, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like I said, whenever I start weaving out things that have like heavy Christian symbolism associated with it, I always think of this guy.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I feel like he's brought so many things to my attention. We did our series on the Bible and plants and the crossover and stuff.
Yep.
So it's always good for me to learn about this stuff because I don't have that much of a reference for it.
Right.
With my history of, everything. So
Right.
never been a point of interest for me to study because it was never a part of my life like growing up. So I feel like there's kind of a void there that I don't have as much information when it comes to the biblical side of things or the histories of this. So it's always interesting for me to hear.
Right.
You know?
I get a lot out of it.
Yeah.
And
a lot of it makes, it is what it is for a reason.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
super layered, super encoded. And so when people can kind of riff and weave like the branch here, I love it. I think it's cool.
Yeah. Most of my biblical study stuff is because of cannabis.
Yeah, I know.
And cannabis being, encoded in the Bible. And that's a whole other weave too, which is a heavy interest of mine.
Liber 420.
Yeah, Liber 420. Now his name is escaping me.
I can't remember either.
Oh my God. I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. Chris Bennett. Chris Bennett. Yeah. Shout out Chris Bennett. He just came out with a new book, I believe.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. I think it was like last month, I think.
Did you ever reach out for an interview with him?
I haven't, no, but I should because I'd love to interview him about Liber 420. He has multiple books on cannabis and its links to all this stuff historically. So
right.
But he would be a really good interview.
Totally.
So
gotcha. Right on.
Yep.
Well, what do you say, bub? We're almost 2 hours in here. You want to land this thing?
Yeah, let's land it.
Okay.
This was a great one. This was super fun. So glad.
Part of me wants to check the chat, but man, there's too much good stuff going on in there that I feel like it would take me a long time to sift through it all. And I don't know. I think it's probably best just to
I just think they were really
here, but
there were really great points all around. And again, thanks to everybody who was hanging out.
Right. Totally. So you guys are appreciated. If you're hanging out right now, you're awesome. Honestly, there are some like legendary, really cool people here.
Oh yeah.
I feel that way. Yeah, exactly. I feel that way, and it's really the truth. And so I'm happy to see some new names here. We will be back at some point. Who knows? Maybe next Thursday or the Thursday after that. We've also talked about maybe just doing it not on Thursdays. What a concept. Even though it's called Last Thursday.
Right.
Who knows? Sometimes Sundays might be better for us or some other day.
So we might just come at you guys with the Last Thursday, like you said, on a Sunday.
Right.
And coming up here, we're ramping up to go to Flattoberfest. So things are just kind of getting busier and busier. So maybe we'll do one next week, but we might not. And then the following week, we will be in Vegas.
Oh, and we'll have a ton to talk about afterwards.
Oh, yeah. So I could see it being that we do one when we get home or something like that. And that be like a whole wrap up. But yeah, so anyone who's going to be in Vegas in a couple weeks, we'll be seeing you there.
Totally.
So that'll be exciting. I'm really looking forward to this trip.
Oh, me too.
Of all places too. I don't really care for Vegas, but boy, am I looking forward to just hanging out with people. And we actually got a campsite. We're camping at the Valley of Fire, which I just have to say, if anyone has ever been to the Valley of Fire, it's outside of Vegas by like an hour. And I was there years ago, back in like 2014 or something. And ever since then have wanted to go back really badly and have really wanted to be there with Mario and show him because it's such a gorgeous place. But we got a campsite with our buddies and it's just, I'm so jazzed. I'm so jazzed to be going to the Valley of Fire and have a chance to camp. And when I was there, I thought, oh my God, I want to come back here and camp. And here we are camping out of the Valley of Fire. So it's going to be really fun.
Totally. So we're going to see if this works here. I think maybe our internet's too slow to get the slides going.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, but
yeah, we'll just give thank yous again to all the patrons. Thank you all for being here. Currently, full moon offering that is still available is my elderberry and reishi syrup. At this point, I believe I have 3 bottles left. I'd have to look at the tally going on, but it's a very special batch this time. Mario and I both harvested the elderberries from our tree, so it's extra special. And if you are into that sort of thing, all right, kick this off.
as you were.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's available, and I'm just really excited about that one. And is there anything else? Oh, next week's show, Serena of Tippy Canoe Herbs. She's going to be with me. Really looking forward to talking with her more. So that's 10/10 next Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We're going to get into it, and I'm looking forward to it very much.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yep.
Right on.
So,
and all my stuff can be found at symbolicstudies.com. And let's see here. I went on a few streams this week.
Yes, you did. You've been very active.
Talked about the underworld and some psychopomp deities with Chance on Vibrant. That's the Interverse podcast if you want to check that out. And then I was on Old World Florida earlier this week. Talked to Robert Phoenix and Analog about the eclipse in Texas. That's coming up. And then I know there was at least one other thing I did this week. I can't remember off the top of my head, though. What's going on with that?
We did Healing Home with Marty Leeds.
Healing Home with Marty Leeds.
Yep.
Yes, totally.
Yeah,
exactly. Because it was right before the other show.
Yeah, it was.
So check that out.
Yep.
On the Healing Home.
On the Healing Home with Marty. And what was I going to say? There was one other thing that I just thought of. And now it escaped me. So it's okay.
Yeah, no worries. All righty, guys. Well, that'll do it. Take care and have a good weekend. Until next time.
Later. See ya. Oh, it's my Sherry's birthday.
I wonder, is that today?
I don't know.
It's probably ended already, but...